many people would have stuck with it, but we did. So, Colonel Scotty Autin was born in Houma, Louisiana. And in 2002, he graduated from the United States Military Academy with a degree in engineering management and commissioned into the Corps of Engineers. And I can tell you, his bio is too long to read. You don't need to read it. But I would suggest you go to our website. It's very, very, it's very good. He's done a lot of things, been a lot of places, and we're honored to have a hometown person come back and have this position, this very important position for our area and all of South Louisiana. Colonel Scotty Autin, Commander and District Engineer of New Orleans District.
First and foremost, it's always awesome to come to a location where I don't have to correct how to say my last name. So, Roger, thank you for that. That's the first time in my career where I'm not saying over and over that it's Autin. It's such an honor to be here. I want to thank all of you for coming, giving me the opportunity to speak to you and engage with you, and thank you for what you do for the community. I want to say thanks to President Delcombe, who's come. We've had some great conversations, and hopefully as you hear through the speech here, this is going to be thematic throughout my tenure is building relationships. And doing all we can to deliver for the people of South Louisiana. So I've got quite a few slides. I could bore you with a bunch of project details, or I can tell you a little bit more of a story. And so which one would you prefer? Would you prefer I talk a little bit more from the South Louisiana style? Story. Of course, yeah, definitely. That's where I prefer it, right? So what I wanted to do was give you a little background for me, and as he said, I'm not going to talk to my military history, but I wanted to talk briefly on what this job means to me. And I think the reason I do this is it gives you why this is such an important job, and it's not lost on me, right? And so just to kind of go back in time, the Autins come originally from southwest France, and they shot over to Nova Scotia back in the 1600s. They had a little issue staying in France. They said, we're going to go to Nova Scotia so we can get rid of this religious persecution. And the Brits and the French said, no, you're not going to do that. We're going to chase you across the continent. And so Francois Autin, back in the early 1700s, was fighting the British off the coast of Nova Scotia and all around the Great Lakes. Had several sons. One of them, his name's Benjamin Autin. And so in 1745, 46, Benjamin Autin, at the age of 16 years old, got in a canoe with an Indian friend and decided he was going to canoe across the Great Lakes, across the Ohio River, and all the way down the Mississippi. So as his father of a 16-year-old who can't see his son driving across the Huey P. Long Bridge by himself, I can't even imagine a 16-year-old canoeing all the way down the entire river system, right? And Benjamin was the lineage that I tied the Autins, all our Autins in South Louisiana tied back to Benjamin, landed just in the northern part of Terrebonne Parish in 1750. And so think about that. Before the nation was founded, most of all of us in this room and across South Louisiana, we tie back to this great state. And it all starts with the water system, right? And so the lineage that I have to South Louisiana goes back before the United States was founded. And it starts and ends with the water and living on the water. And then to fast forward a little bit, I want to tell a quick story. My great-great-grandfather, his name is Gibson Autin. Gibson Autin started a meatpacking company in South Louisiana. He would slaughter the cattle. He'd go house to house, slaughter cattle, and then sell that. Grew that into a business throughout Terrebonne Parish. Some of you, if you're a little older, or your family may remember Autin Packing Company throughout Terrebonne. It was popular with a lot of the mariners and the fishermen and the oil and gas industry for the Vienna sausage and some of the other stuff. But Gibson Autin was the first president of the Chamber of Commerce, right? And so Gibson took a lot of pride in growing businesses and growing the opportunities in South Louisiana. One of the things that he realized very quickly is if he wanted to get his product to market, he had to get it to the water. And the navigation and the navigable waterways was vital to pushing the goods through South Louisiana. And so he started advocating for Houma Navigation Canal. That was where our family lived, was in Houma. World War II put a little bit of damper on that, but he never slowed down his advocacy for a Houma Navigation Canal. And then post-World War II, he came to the Corps of Engineers in New Orleans District, and he walked up there, pitched the idea of a Houma Navigation Canal to the district commander at the time. And the district commander said, "That sounds great. We need a lot of money and 3 years to study this." And Gibson said, "I'm not waiting that long." And so Gibson went up to D.C. with other great people throughout South Louisiana, and they advocated for a Houma Navigation Canal and lobbied for it, fought for it, and got it written into law and forced the Corps of Engineers to implement it. And so what you see in that bottom right picture there is the grand opening, the ribbon cutting of the Houma Navigation Canal. And if you see that guy in the 10-gallon hat, right? If you think of Curious George with the man in the yellow hat, that's the hat he had. That's my great-great-grandfather, Gibson Autin. His son, Arnold Autin, also president of the Chamber of Commerce, president of the company, and all of that's been passed down. And so I tell you that story to say that the importance of what South Louisiana provides to the entire world has been ingrained in me since I was a child. Right, and the importance of this state and the people, the pride, the capability, the knowledge, and how we work together and how we work with both industry and through our political entities, through our nonprofit and our engagement groups, we all work together. And I'm a product of a Louisiana family, right? And I've had those family gatherings where we sit around and play Pedro. Any Pedro players? Right? That's more. Lafouche doesn't count. Lafouche Paris doesn't count for Pedro. And so, but you have those hard conversations. You have those difficult conversations, but it's from a place of love. And I take the same approach here in the Corps and District Command. If we've got some stuff that we may not be in alignment with, that's okay. That's all right. Let's have a conversation about it. Let's come together. Let's find where we align, let's find what our goals are, and let's move out together, because this is all for a betterment of the state, right? And so I tell you that story to give you a little bit of the background of how I was raised, the importance of family. I still have family in South Louisiana. I have a lot of family in Houma, Terrebonne, Baton Rouge, Jennings, all the way throughout, right? And so it's not lost on me that the decisions made today are impacting my family in the future. And so I say that from a place of deep pride, but heavy responsibility. And I want us to all work together and find out what's best. And in those areas that maybe we can't quite come together, that's okay. We at least know it. We understand it. And we work from that going forward. And so that's a little bit on me. I won't read my military stuff. Spent a lot of time in the woods, spent a lot of time jumping out of airplanes, spent a lot of time eating food very, very quickly, figuring I could taste it later, so I was well trained for this moment right here to eat quickly and get to the briefing. What I'd like to do is I'm going to walk through a couple of slides, and then I'm going to go quickly through our project slides. And it's not they're all very important. And if you want more on them, what we left a copy here, and we can talk through that. But I want to get to the questions, right? So I want to talk some broader stuff, some bigger things that I think we have a lot of opportunity on. And then we'll get to the questions and really kind of get to, what your concerns or what your thoughts are, and close this out. I think we got about 30 minutes total, so we can spend some time together. The one thing that, I'll tell you this. When I came into District Command and I looked at the New Orleans District and I looked at all the relationships we had with the key stakeholders, I was immediately impressed at the capability and the professionalism of all of them. I'll tell you, the team that you have both in your parishes and in the companies and then even the New Orleans District, they're all very good. South Louisiana is complex. Right, it hands us some really hard problems, and more often than the rest of the nation. And so you get really good people that iterate on those problems, and they learn. We're fast learners down here. And so you got a really good group of people, and they all understand what they want to do, and they're focused on business metrics, engineering capability, right, and sustainability of our environment. And they understand that those three work together. But there was a little bit of a gap, and I'll tell you, I think we can all come together and work on this. I'm not sure that the people, and maybe the businesses understand it more so, but the people and the organizations fully appreciate how valuable South Louisiana is to the world. I am not saying that lightly. I've lived all over the world, right? I was stationed in Europe multiple times. And when you talk about the things that matter in the world, South Louisiana has a part in that, all of that. And how valuable this section of the nation is, right? And so it's about value to the nation. And here's my challenge to you. And this is the thing that I'm talking with the state about, and this is our opportunity to come together. So the United States is celebrating its 250th anniversary this year, 250 years. And I'm going to give you a little quick history lesson, right? And so one of the first things that the colonies bought from Napoleon, right, was the Louisiana Purchase. All right? Who thinks they know why they bought the Louisiana Purchase? Just give me a reason. What was it? We'll do two. I'm going to do a whole lot of Q&A, but I'm going to do it right here. Give me one reason why they bought Louisiana Purchase. Yes, sir. Fur trade. Okay. Mississippi River. One more. What was that? The price. Yeah, it's too good. It's too good to pass up. No, that's fair. Yeah, absolutely. $5 million is nothing. Right. Yeah, that was part of it. Right. All of those things are true. You all get an A+. The one that wasn't mentioned, Port of New Orleans. Right? And I know I'm speaking to the chapel, but let's talk the broader, the Port of New Orleans, right? The access route. And so for those that said the Mississippi River, right, you're right. It's the ability to move water. The founding fathers knew, the nation early on knew that if we were going to be powerful, we had to project across a broad space. And the only way to do that is through our inland nav system. And then they quickly realized that not the bulk of the Mississippi River waterways was not the Mississippi by itself. And so 2 years later, what did they buy? They bought the Ohio River system, right? And so if you go back and you look, they bought the entire Mississippi-Ohio tributary system in the early 1800s. And they understood the power. So the Louisiana Purchase was not about land. Usually we get land, but it was about a watershed. It was ultimately about power projection through a port. And so my argument and my thesis is the American way of life, the things that we think of ourselves as American, right? What defines who we are and how we operate as an American society, right? And it's our ability for free market. It's our ability for democracy, right? And betterment of our lives. All of that is enabled by South Louisiana. Because you think about the things that each of you in this room do and you work on, whether it's the environment, whether it's trade, whether it's navigation, oil and gas, all of those things contribute to your American way of life. And if you want to talk about it through the lens of what are we willing to fight for, right? It's those vital interests. What are we willing to contribute national capital, America's sons and daughters, to protect that American way of life? And South Louisiana is a vital part of that. Right? And so I want you to kind of think through that lens as you look at this slide. Look at all the things, right, that exist in this footprint that contribute. And so whether you live in Washington State or Washington, D.C., South Louisiana has an impact on that. The ability for you to live your everyday life, whether it's through a gas price, whether it's through the shoes, the clothes you wear, right, the petrochemical, all of that stuff flows through this part of the country. And it either originates here or it flows out to the rest of the world from your ports, your waterways, the things that you either protect. And the vital people that operate those oil and gas, those ports, your businesses, they're worth protecting as well, right? And so as we talk about this, the idea that we as the Corps of Engineers do flood risk management, navigation, and environmental protection, all three of those are in concert. And so I will tell you, there's not an or sign in between those three words. There's a giant and sign because all three have to exist together in South Louisiana. My brothers and sisters in other districts, they can kind of play with the three of those and put more emphasis on one or the other. I don't have that opportunity. All three of those matter too much here. And they all are in concert and they all work together. A couple of things I want to highlight for you as you look through this slide. So just to give you some context and maybe some data to reinforce what my claim and my assertion, Mississippi River is the #1 waterway in the nation. GIWW is the #3 waterway, as you just look at tonnage, right? And we're only talking about tonnage. And so as you think through value of cargo, that instantly goes up, right? And now you start talking about worldwide impact. And so you got the number 1 and the number 3 waterway in the nation flowing through South Louisiana. If you look at the ports, right, and we start talking about ports just as it relates to tonnage, you've got 5 of the top 12 ports in the nation that exist in South Louisiana. If you combine those 5 ports together, they're the number 1 in the world by echelons, right? And that's just tonnage, right? And I'll give Lafourche Parish and Port Fourchon a little bit of a plug here, because how do you put Port Fourchon in a box, right? They don't really deal with tonnage, right? It's much like the port here. It's a very specialty port. Port Morgan City, they have a lot of specialty trade. So they may not grade well on tonnage, but they have a huge impact. And so Port of Houston is the number 1 port in the nation right now. If you shut down the Port of Houston, Houstonians feel it in about 12 hours. Now the markets will react, right? There's going to have a reaction to the markets. But in terms of real supply and demand, Houstonians, the Port of Houston really exists a lot, inbounds for Houstonians. If you shut down the Port of Fourchon, America feels it in 12 hours, right? Americans will feel it. And most people in America can't spell Fourchon, right? Let alone know where it is. And so the value of who you are and what you do, the value of your ability to contribute to the American way of life cannot be understated, right? And so I would ask you, as a kind of a closing mark on this slide here, how well are you translating that? Can you help your parish, your state senator representative, the U.S. representatives, the U.S. senators? Can you help them translate what you do, your trade associations? Because the best thing we can do is all speak the same language. And we all speak the value of South Louisiana as we ask and advocate for what's going on here. I'm going to do that at the Fed level. You can appreciate I'm not a lobbyist. I'm here to just serve as a technical lead. I just speak facts, right? Truth to power. But if we can all say the same thing, just think how impactful that is, right? As we go and say, hey, we need, X, Y, and Z to navigate this, to protect that going forward. And so I'd ask you to think about that as you start talking amongst your associations and you talk value. How many people do you employ? How much tax base are you providing? What does your product, either that you move or that you produce, how is that impacting global capability, right? Think through the LNG lens. South Louisiana gave President Trump a strategic capability. South Louisiana enabled President Trump to look at Russia and said, I don't think so, right? Hey, Europe, we got your back. We're going to do this. And he was able to provide strategic capability and strategic influence because of the LNG capability that exists in South Louisiana. And so you're part of that narrative. And please pass that forward and look for that. Look for opportunities to tell that story. All right, the next one I was going to talk through is really kind of what we do. And so you can see the New Orleans District Corps of Engineers. I talked it earlier, but I've got 3 main mission sets, right? So flood risk management, and how do I mitigate and manage the risk that's posed from flood? And we've got, all of you have lived it. We've got coastal floods from the storms. We've got Mississippi River, Atchafalaya flooding through the river, and then we'll have heavy inundation and rain flood. And so we have to think through how do we manage the risk of all 3 of those types of floods. Navigation, huge part, right? And that ties into the last topic that we just talked about. That is the economic lifeblood of this nation. And that is the founding reason the Corps of Engineers exist in the way that we do. That was the first task that the U.S. government handed was, hey, Corps of Engineers, you're the only one that we can task. We need to move our Army and Navy quickly across this brand new continent. I need you to go figure out navigation and keep it navigable, which started as clearing and grubbing and snagging, getting the logs out of the backlog, and has translated to dredging over time. And it's a mission set that we maintain to this day. Environmental, right? We have a huge environmental responsibility, which has translated itself to regulatory and permitting, all the way to assessing and measuring impacts and mitigation, right? And so as we look at, we are a steward of the environment, of maintaining. And so as we are a proponent of growing and enabling the economy the best we can in the most environmentally responsible way that we can, right? And so some doesn't mean that we are a roadblock. We're trying to present opportunities to grow and maintain the environment in the same one. And then one that isn't a primary mission, but we do quite a bit of it, and I think we, the Corps, do it very, very well, is our emergency response. And so we are immediate responders as it relates to flooding. You see us, we work alongside FEMA, we work with Louisiana, the GOSEP, right? We work with the state, we work abroad and domestically. And the Corps of Engineers, I think it's where our strength, it's something that I want to bring back into the non-emergency side, but what's the strength of the Corps of Engineers? I think we have a cadre of military officers who I have a bias for action. I'm going to show up on the ground, guess what? We're taking action. I'm not going to sit around and wait. I'm ready to act. We have a cadre of technical experts that those military officers lead, and we are there to get things done. And that's what the Chief of Engineers has charged me to bring back into the other side, right? Deliver the program, be a problem solver, work with the team, and get results. And so you can see there, I'm not going to walk through all of it, but I'm all over. I will use now to kind of transition a little bit to today. So I'll go back. You can see, obviously, we have quite a bit along Mississippi River proper. We've got some growing opportunities here in the Atchafalaya and then west. I've already talked with the team. We won't diminish what we're doing in the Mississippi River, but I'll tell you, I'm ready to do more in the Atchafalaya area. If you've met me previously and we've talked through some of this, you can after the fact, you can say I'm not just saying it because of the crowd I'm talking to. I'm committed to this. I think there's a ton of opportunity in Atchafalaya. Right now, this is what I just mentioned to the state senator before he came. I've talked to several other people about it, and so hopefully you can appreciate there's a lot of stakeholders in the Atchafalaya. And I recognize the room, and kind of the stakeholder interest in the room, and there's a lot of different interest, and that's okay. That's all right, right? And so I know that in some instances, the parishes or the NAV community, if you look at the kind of the Venn diagram of circles, and you look at some of the other environmental groups, those circles may not cross, right? Where you kind of think through a Venn diagram of what's in the middle. That's all right. I'm happy to let the Corps of Engineers be that center circle. And so what I challenge you as it relates to the Atchafalaya, and what I'd ask you to do is that, in the coming months, I'm going to ask for some stakeholder engagements. And I want us to come together. And if there's certain stakeholders that want to be mad at someone, not a problem. Be mad at me. Yell at me. But here's what I'm going to say. Take 48 hours, go through your stages of grief, and then show up ready to work, right? And that's fun. I've been yelled at. I'm in the Army. I've been yelled at before, right? Was that movie with Brad Pitt and Glorious Bastards? What are they going to do, yell at me? Okay, that's fine. You can yell at me. I'm okay with that. But I'm ready to work, right? And so what I want to do with the Atchafalaya, there's a lot of interest. There's a lot of opportunity. There's things we can do better. I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to the room. There's things that we have to recognize need to be better. And so as I talk through those three mission sets as it relates to the Atchafalaya, I have a heavy interest in flood risk management, right? And starting at the old river control structure and working your way down, right? That's really kind of the Corps of Engineers and what we've done focused on that. And that's okay. We're going to work through that. We've got some comprehensive studies that I think are going to start to outline some actions and some opportunities. But we need to be able to talk through, can the Atchafalaya Basin do what we, the Corps, designed it to do, right? And I think we've already started looking at it, and I don't think so, right? And that's okay. We got to come in and we got to recognize it, but we got to come to the table. And so as we talk about sediment, right, we talk about levee height, we talk about navigation, we talk about environmental capability, all of those things need to be on the table. And that's okay that some of those things are going to be at odds with others. But if we can't come together as a group and recognize that and then find ways where our Venn diagram does cross and move quickly on those, then my great-great-grandson will be here talking to you, and it'll be the same topic. And I really don't want that. I don't have a lot of time in the seat. And my goal is to get, what Colonel Cullen Jones used to call irreversible momentum, I got 3 years, right? And that's not a lot of time. Not a lot of time at all.